Welcome to the Wisdom of Show. I'm your host, Simon Bowen, and every week I'm speaking to the world's greatest leaders, thinkers, and entrepreneurs about complex issues and impactful leadership. Join us in the Renaissance of Wisdom. Well, welcome back to the Wisdom of, and today we're exploring the wisdom of Shi Heng Yi, or Shifu, who is a master of the Shaolin way, or the Shaolin practice. And he's based in Germany, and he's one of the masters addressing Europe, and really, arrived in Europe coming from the teachings of the five real masters in China in order to bring that to a European setting. I'll walk through the bio in a little bit, but remember, the purpose of this show is to take leadership to a deeper level of wisdom in a world full of tips and tricks, hacks and shortcuts, and the pursuit of speed and urgency over substance. We're really trying to dig deeper into what is a deep level of wisdom that the leaders of today in both business and politics and in social settings can tap into. And we have to think that in much the same way that work like Sun Tzu and the Art of War became a Bible for managers, over the last 20 or 30 years, the Shaolin way would have a deep and centered way of thinking about how you start with an inner picture and then really have an impact as a leader as an outward picture. So Shifu, I'd love to welcome you to the show. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I'm fascinated by the sorts of things that you teach and share, and I really appreciate you giving us the time to be able to speak through this with you.
Yes, Simon, thank you very much for the introduction. And actually, I'm also looking very much forward for this conversation. But maybe right in the beginning, I think it's useful to just mention, since I'm not coming, or let's say I didn't spend enough time in the business area, that's why there might be a lot of things actually, which will relate to the modern way of how you are able to, let's say, run your business or take ideas in order to maybe optimize it or have some different perspectives. But the way where I'm actually coming from is, like you said before, it's like the Shaolin way, which is very, very much on the one side, martial arts based. So the practice of martial arts is a very deep core of this practice. And on the other side, we have the Buddhist teachings, the Taoist teachings, or also the Confucianist teachings.
Yeah. So that was one of the things I was going to ask you about. And I think there's a healthy benefit when people have a deep wisdom to share and it hasn't come from traditional pathways of leadership, because I think we can get too steeped into the habit patterns that everyone's done it like this. And there are so many other areas that we can draw wisdom from, and this would be one of them. And so I'll come to your bio in a minute, because it's important that people understand just how much substance there is behind this. But, the practice is kind of from a martial arts perspective and also from a Buddhist perspective. And they're two, for people not familiar, they might feel like two really different things. For people, I'd love to just get a bit more information from you about the merge of those two. And separately, they're both quite powerful, but I suspect when you put the two together, you get a whole different level of power that comes from the merge of those two disciplines. So I'd really love you to explore those two dimensions and how they interface a little more for folks.
Yes. So this now might be a little bit longer introduction, but I try as good as I can to really set a little bit the framework in order to really understand what all of this is about.
Yep.
So let's start first of all like this. Sometimes just a few years back, we were also being very much invited, for example, by corporations or also by the business area in order to support them a little bit when we had all these times with stress and with the burnout seasons coming, meaning when everybody was stressed out. And especially in that area, there is one word that always popped up again, which was how to find the proper work-life balance.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And actually, this already very, very much is a good introduction, because in the way of how we see the world, it's like this, that we don't need a work-life balance, meaning deciding how to invest our time into work and how invest our time into our private life, because we have currently one life, and within this lifetime, you go to work, you do have holidays, you do have a partnership, you do have different other areas in your life that you're taking care of. Your diet is part of your life. So that means at the end, it's not about work-life balance. It's about finding a way how actually to balance out already the life that from person to person can be can consist of different areas. So that means the more complex it becomes, the more things you have to do during your lifetime. All of these separate areas is actually what you need to balance out. So that means, first of all, it is the perception, it is the perspective that we have one lifetime inside this body that has been, let's say, given to us. Now, without saying wherever this comes from or why we have it, but this body that we have, it's limited in lifetime.
Yeah.
And now the question is, while we are walking through our life right now, what is it that you want to invest your lifetime in? Some people invest it into work in order to gain and attain some financial stability. It is one way how you can invest this lifetime. But other people have also realized already that instead of investing into attaining more material belongings or attaining more financial abilities, they sometimes invest in experience. So they realized, okay, this lifetime, it's also about experiencing whatever comes along the way. And so in the core of this type of understanding is something that we relate to as being awareness. So awareness meaning your ability of actually observing and also being able to actually grasp all the information, all the types of feelings and thoughts, for example, that you are having in each moment. So this is that point where sometimes when people already hear about or read about Buddhist teachings or ancient teachings from Asia, where it comes to mindfulness, awareness, living in the present moment, finding balance, finding peace. I mean, it's different expressions, but they are all pointing at one and the same thing.
Yeah.
If you want to find something, the discoveries and the finding itself, it can always only happen right now in the present moment. And so this already, without going into any type of religious content right now, it's just the realization that if I have something in my hands to do, if there's something where I can readjust or adjust my future or the path where I'm going to, it's going to happen right now. So this is where a lot of different practices are aiming at. First of all, to bring all these scattered thoughts that we humans meanwhile have in this very, very fast-paced world. Now, fast-paced also means that sometimes we're waking up in the morning, you sit in the car, driving towards work, but already the mind is already like thinking into, okay, what do I have to do in the office? How is how is my day going to look like? And here it is, we take the pace a little bit out and saying, okay, if you eat your breakfast, your mind also stay with the breakfast. If you drink your coffee, drink and be with the coffee. If you drive the car, drive the car. If you are breathing, then breathe. So these are all practices to, first of all, catch back your attention, which is normally trying to jump into the future and always catch it back again. Catch yourself back and be in the present moment. So this is like step number one, in the way of what is it that we actually in this type of tradition want to develop, and why do we want to develop it like this? Well, like I said, we have maximum 100 years of lifetime, and the best way for us, from our perspective, to spend these 100 years of lifetime is to very mindfully experience each moment that is happening inside these 100 years. This is how experience is being, let's say, realized.
There's a lot I want to unpack there. I'm just going to let people know where this is coming from. And with your permission, I'm going to read some of this because I really want people to get a sense of the background, and I don't want to miss anything. So Shifu belongs to the 35th generation of Shaolin Masters, the headmaster of the Shaolin Temple in Europe, which is in Germany. And so his mission is to pass on to other people the Shaolin traditions, which is this marriage, as we've been talking about, between martial arts and Buddhist practices. So you started at the age of 4, which is an interesting question as well, in terms of how did that even happen? And in 2001, you started studying under those 5 Shaolin masters at the Songshan Shaolin Temple in China, and then, brought this to Europe. So I guess as you grew up observing the ways of these masters and this way of training and living, because it's a full commitment to the way you actually live and work through the 5 hindrances that you talk about on a constant basis, and keep that mindfulness. It's really about, you've committed your lifetime, it seems, to expanding the heritage of this and being able to help people. What, about 31 years, I think you've been studying this, and help people kind of find greater balance and inner knowing and those sorts of things from this. So this is not a 5-minute exercise for you. This is deep study, a lot of years practice, and I guess a lot of disciplines around it. So you raised some interesting observations, and one of the things that you said, which I think it just fascinated me, you made a really interesting comment, and I do a lot of thinking about time and time as a concept. And, we know that a lot of people live in the past, and quite often with regret. So this hindsight of regret, a lot of people project themselves into the future in either hope or anxiety, but we're not great in a modern world at, being present and having the insight of the moment. And so you've really kind of emphasized this idea of, catching attention and being in the moment. But you made a really interesting comment on something that I was watching, where you said the future only matters if you're in it, which I thought was a pretty fascinating comment, because people project to the future to see what's it going to look like for them, or what could they make happen. But I'm guessing there's also that process but you've got to bring it back to the present, catch your attention and be in the present. I'd love you to expand on that whole idea of the future only matters if you're in it. Your one life, why, your life, what is it that you're going to do? So I'd love to, that one line really caught my attention. The future only matters if you're in it. I'd love you to kind of expand some thinking on that.
Okay, so I mean, right now we are in 2024. YouTube is full of different videos and content about, does time, does space exist?
Yeah.
All of these type of topics, of course. So now, first of all, I really think that I'm absolutely not in the possession of the only truth in the world. This is, let's say, how it starts.
Mm.
But what I am a big friend of is, it's fine to use different type of concepts, with the most important aspect of all of them in being practical at the end of the day, of being practical for the ones that are listening to these things, to apply them into their life.
Mm.
So now, this sentence, for example, that the future doesn't matter if you are not there. It's a real true statement, just based out of the fact. Right now, we're sitting here in our office, and after this conversation, of course, we can have our goals, we can have our destinations painted in our mind, afterwards making our strategies how to get there. But at the same time, the other truth is that in case we're stepping out on the street and are just unaware for a moment, and this is why our car is crashing us, then all the strategy, all the imagination we had about our future was just like a construct of the mind. So the simple fact of the future only matters if you are going to be one side physically there, but especially mentally there, and also with your consciousness, with your awareness in the future of being able actually to become aware of what is happening to you. Now, the important part about when we already talk about awareness or consciousness is that you can always just be aware and conscious in the present moment. Your consciousness cannot be in the past. You can be conscious about past events. You can think about something in the future, but ultimately the awareness itself, so the one that is able to perceive whatever comes to you, this one is only happening now, every second. It's always now. What is always remaining the same in all of these, let's say, time frames is your ability to actually grasp the moment, your ability to realize there is something coming. And this consciousness, this awareness, the ability to take the information, to see it in the mind, this is always the same. It doesn't diminish and it never grows more. So what I mean is, let's just say physically, if we would be on a physical plane and let's say you would somehow hurt your arm and out of any reason you would need to remove the arm, physically something would be missing about you. But awareness-wise, consciousness-wise, it's impossible to take away your ability of being conscious. That one is stable 100% throughout your complete lifetime. And this is again, to bring it back to the point, why the training, the development of this awareness, of this mindfulness is such an integral part of our, let's say, daily or actually of our daily practice, but which takes sometimes a lifetime to do.
It's an interesting comment that consciousness can only exist in the present moment, awareness and perception, because I'm not sure that people think about that deeply enough. You know, a lot of people will form a perception about something, but they're attaching it to a future view. So, you know, I believe, and then they'll make a statement and they're talking about the future, and they're not actually talking about what the evidence is in front of them right now in terms of the present moment. What are they seeing right now? You know, we make our own stories up, and often we make them up in the past and in the future, but what is happening right now? What is the evidence in front of you that's telling you what is happening right now? So that's an interesting observation. Consciousness only happens in the present moment. And I think that's one of the pursuits that people have. It's certainly one of the pursuits that people have a lot in the business world, how to be present, right? And the whole idea of work-life balance also takes on a different context if you know how to be present. So, you know, do we need work-life balance, or do we need to be more present when we're at home with our families? Do we need more work-life balance, or do we need to just be present when we're doing our work at the desk or whatever the case might be? And it could take a lifetime to be to have that ability to be really present. But what are some of the things that people might explore further? I'm not asking you to give us the top 10 tips to be more present, right? I'm more interested in what are some things that people might want to explore that come through that, the Shaolin way and some of the principles that you study that might help people become more skilled at this idea of consciousness in the present moment.
Okay. So, like you mentioned before, Simon, on the one side, we have the practice of the martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, we have the Buddhist teachings. So when it comes to the Shaolin tradition, when it comes to the Shaolin Temple, in the very, very first place, it is a Buddhist monastery.
Mm-hmm.
So that means it is normally related to Buddhist tradition, more precisely to something which nowadays people know as Zen Buddhism or Chan Buddhism, how it is called in China.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the core, Zen Chan Buddhism.
Yep.
Now, in order to develop the virtues and also, let's say, the state of mind, which sometimes is just related as Chan, meditation, Zen. Therefore, there are existing a lot of different ways how to support your training in order to get to that proper state of mind. And martial arts is just one out of many ways that are existing that can support you, let's say, in order to get a better understanding of what is this Zen, Chan, state of mind, what is this consciousness. So this is very, very close related. Therefore, for right now, I will just leave away a little bit the martial art aspect and give you like very precisely what is the advantage of understanding why should I invest maybe my lifetime a little bit at least to get an understanding for this.
Sure.
So, and that is because when we sometimes just look out in the world, even just observing the daily cycle, yeah. So there is a time when the sun is rising and there's a time when the sun is gone. So we have the exchange between day and night. Ever since we are born, it is like this. When we observe ourselves, since birth, there is 50% of inhalation and there's 50% of exhalation. The same goes for the way of how our heart is beating. It's always the exchange between, let's say, pumping the blood. So we have also this type of movement inside. In the way of how our body is behaving, sometimes we feel very well, sometimes we get sick. Yeah, there is a time when we are young, there will be a time when we get old. There is a left, there is a right, there is a up, there is a down, there is success, and there is failure existing. So that means the first observation is that in this world that we are living, we are automatically always and always confronted with the up and downs, the left and rights, with the duality or the polarity of what is existing in this world. So this is the number one observation. It's just happening. This world is consisting always of two.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a person who is always looking to have success, you're always looking for the upward move, getting higher, getting better, getting more beautiful. I think that along the way you will realize it's an illusion that you have put into your mind, because it is impossible in this world to stay on one line, because already the nature in which we are embedded in is always consisting of the ups and the downs. Now the question is, what is it actually that can perceive that it is an up and that it is a down? And this again is the consciousness. It's the awareness. We are aware right now something is moving upwards. We are aware right now something is declining. So the up and downs this is something which will always and always start to move like a pendulum. You never know when you will be in an up or no, you cannot really decide if you are in an up or if you're in a down. But what is stable all the time is your ability to actually observe it. You can see the up and down. And what is very, very much determining if you are regarding something as up or down, this is your thinking. It's your thought. Because you have made your own thinking model about what does success mean to you. So it's a construct that you have put into your mind. And when something is in opposition to what you are thinking about your model and your concept of success, then it means you feel it differently. And this is where now in the Buddhist teachings comes the sentence, with our thoughts, we create the world. So success or failure is very, very much dependent on what is your personal definition of it. How have you defined success or failure for yourself? So the more you are staying in the thinking world, the more you think about it, the more complicated the world becomes. And this is the reason why we practice. Just return back to your baseline, the base awareness, which can simply observe the course of life. Understanding, as long as you have this body, you're going to be faced with the up and the downs of life. That's just how it is. And once this becomes something really feelable, so not just the words talking about it, so when the teachings really become your way of life, what it takes away from you is that burden and is that suffering that occurs. Always when you see there's the up, now comes the down. There's the up, now comes the down. Because you finally see how it is. There is no way for you to, like, let's say, influence when something's gonna occur in your lifetime. That is the ultimate core of the teaching for what it is and how it can help in our mental way of looking into the world.
And is the challenge then more about what you do in every present moment based on what is happening in terms of that up and down cycle? Now, if consciousness is in the moment, is the challenge to be able to observe and see where the cycle is, and then in a practical way, conduct yourself in, appropriate to where the cycle is at. Is that something that we should train to do?
This is, for example, one conclusion that you can personally take out from it. And now here you can see why the martial arts also fit so well into this whole idea. Because in the martial arts, which means it is a training for you to develop yourself with the abilities to gain skills in terms of martial art training. So you want to become, let's say, you want to be able to defend yourself. You want to become a good fighter. So this is, let's say, the martial art. And there's one thing when you practice martial arts, which is very important. And that one is you don't give up.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so that means, let's say, you start your training, you're feeling weak, and you're starting to do your first push-ups. First day, you can only do 5. But your teacher, he's pushing you to make 10. So the last 5, you're really fighting. And so embedded inside the martial art training, you always have that you are being confronted in a way with a difficulty, with a challenge, but there is no possibility for you, or there's no option given for you to give up. So what does it mean if you grow up as a martial artist? You know already that when you go into the training today, you're gonna face the next challenge. And now just imagine you grow up with this type of mindset. So that means you wake up and you already know, okay, maybe the day is not gonna be exactly the way how I imagine, but for myself, I have decided already, no matter what comes, I just will not give up. And this is something that now translating this into your daily life, into your daily way of how you are doing your business, it's okay if challenges come, if something comes that maybe sets you back a little bit, but it will not stop you. And this is one of the differences, because the consciousness is just there all the time, realizing in which state you are maybe, and then of course you can do your actions in order to adjust it. If it is in your hands, then of course we adjust it. So to also take away this confusion, um, to be aware doesn't mean that if you are, let's say, regarding something as being more helpful, more useful, of course we invest our work then to do something about it. So to be conscious, to be aware, doesn't mean that from now on we just like lean back and observe the world.
Mm.
It just means the basic, the foundation from which we are basing our actions from. This one is unshakable, it's unbreakable, it is present. And from that space of presence, now this is where we start like tuning and readjusting what we would like, let's say.
So we're coming near to the end, and I'd like to ask some fast questions with rapid responses in a minute, just as a way of closing it out. But you studied under 5 Shaolin masters. You've had influential people over the course of your life, and I really want to give leaders. You're the headmaster, of the school, so you have the responsibility to, across the school, carry. You're a leader in the school, the responsibility of carrying the traditions through, and so leaders have responsibilities that others don't, and people engage with a leader more than anything else based on how the leader shows up. And so I'd love, if it was possible, you think about those 5 Shaolin masters that you studied under and other people that have been influential for you. I'd love to see if there were any common habits that they seemed to display or ways that they carried themselves, that actually told you they really are committed to the study of the Shaolin way. They really do understand the practices of the Buddhist, studies, and they do understand the practices of the martial arts study, and they're worthy of me studying under. They're, what were the breadcrumbs, to use a technology term, that you saw in them? That they had the consciousness and the awareness, and they were present. I'm not sure what they would have been, but I'd be interested if you have any things that you really noticed, because I suspect they will translate very directly to leadership in business and in communities and things like that as well. So I'd love to, capture, maybe there might be 3 to 5 that you noticed across all of those leaders that you studied under.
Yes. So meanwhile, I'm along this way for 36 years. So I've actually went through a lot of different trainings and also met quite a lot, meanwhile, different teachers or different masters in this area.
Yes.
And what I can tell, for example, is what makes me want to learn from someone is, first of all, either I can see something in that person that I would like to have, because I realize I don't have it. So the first realization is there is a person who possesses something which I at the moment do not have. So that is one indication already that very clearly displays also the position where you would actually position yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is where we then talk about the master-student relationship, master-student relationship. Because like somebody who possesses something, if I go there, I am the one who's asking for it. So that's why I'm in the receiving position. So this is number one. Number two is, in order for a person to be able to actually give something, he needs to have it.
Hmm.
He needs to have it. So that also means if somebody wants to lead, leading the way, making other people follow along a direction, along a vision, well, I think he better have a very clear vision where the journey is going. Because elsewise, it's just going to be you have a lot of followers, but you actually don't even know yourself. Where do you want to go? Where will you lead them all?
Mm.
Yeah. So this means this term of if you want to give something, you need to have it. And that means in our tradition right now, on the one side, it's clarity. You for yourself have to be very clear about yourself and your own motivation and your own intentions and your own goals of life and whatsoever. You for yourself must solve these questions maybe first in order then to ask other ones to join you or to lead the way for other ones. So there is that term of clarity, which I actually also explained in that one TEDx talk
Yes.
that you mentioned about the five hindrances. That's
Yep.
the whole point about it. Yeah. So um, why to understand these five hindrances? Because these are, let's say, the five conceptual ones which are taking the clarity from you.
It's
And
interesting. That statement, in order for someone to give something away, they have to have it. There's been a practice in management, um, for the last 20 years, the idea of facilitating the vision for the company. And who are the vision keepers, and sometimes there's a hesitancy amongst leaders to actually come out and say, this is where we're going. And instead say, we're going to have a workshop, we're going to get everyone together, we're going to talk about where we're headed. And of course, what that creates is, uncertainty for people, because the collective seldom make up a powerful vision that's as big and as bold as an individual might have when they have that real clarity. So I like that. You can't give away what you don't have. And that means also people shouldn't be looking towards leaders who don't have the thing that they're most looking for, because those people aren't going to be able to help them. So it's super interesting. I'd love to bounce through some um, two or three just interesting questions, just to wrap us up. From your perspective, um, you're not you come from a perspective that a lot of people won't have knowledge of or come from. So you might have some different answers for us. If you could travel to any time in history, where would you go to? And I'm interested in why.
it's a really difficult question because for me, there are so many different and interesting, let's say like this,
Yeah.
interesting um, events that we know maybe happened in history. I wouldn't be able really to choose which one,
Why would you
but
go? Why
maybe
would you go to a place though? Without choosing one, what would be your main reason for wanting to go back to another time in history?
just to sense the different, let's say, feeling, to sense the different perception of how it was in those
Yeah.
times to maybe live. So just because of different cultural backgrounds,
Yeah.
different surrounding, different landscape. But the thing is, you can also have it nowadays. Just the context is different.
Yeah.
But this is where like experiencing again comes into play. So at the end, I would choose the place in history which would like be rich on experience.
Yeah. And of course, the point you're making is awareness and consciousness of what is happening in the moment. at that point in history when you go back there. So this seems like a really silly question, given how much time you dedicate to mastering your practice. But if you could master anything without having to practice, what if you could just click your fingers and then have it, what would that be? And I'll tell you why I'm interested in that question once you give me your answer.
I don't consider myself being super conscious and super aware all the time. So if there is something that with one glimpse would come, it would be what I'm trying to work for this whole lifetime already, which means the waking up,
Yeah.
the
So
wake, the waking up of the mind.
so it would lean to the Buddhist side more than and that whole awareness thing, as opposed to the martial arts side, would you say?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
because the martial art is only possible because you are aware that you are doing these things.
Yeah.
Without consciousness, nothing matters what you're doing.
Do you have a moment of pure happiness at some point in your life that if you could relive it, you would do it in an instant?
I actually regard like, I mean, not necessary right now sitting in the office, okay, but experience rich, there can be many moments. Just like 2 days ago, we had like really heavy snow here in Germany. And so the very beautiful and nice combination is white snow and then sunshine.
Mm.
So this is like a picture perfect sometimes, looks like a fantasy movie, but the truth is that is the movie. So
No, that's interesting. So your moments of happiness are really attached to what is already there for you in some ways and what is already presented.
yeah,
Um, if you could solve one mystery or unanswered question in the world, what might it be?
one mystery in the world.
Yep. Mystery or unanswered question.
I really don't know. This one, I really don't know what to say, to be honest, right now. Nothing comes to my mind because, like, if I would say, yeah, the sense of life, but it's not true. Or how large is the universe? No, because I think all of this will be solved when you wake up.
Okay, perfect. Well, I want to thank you for that. And, I might circle back with you in 6 months' time and say, have you had a chance to think about that a bit more? But I actually think that is an answer to that. Maybe the issue isn't if you could solve one unanswered question or mystery in the world. Maybe the mystery is how can we make sure people wake up in much larger numbers. The world needs people to wake up in so many ways. And I want to thank the people watching the show for their time and staying with us. And Shifu, I really want to thank you for giving us this time and giving us some insight into the Shaolin practice. It's been fascinating for me, and I feel like we've just skimmed the surface, and there's so much underneath this that if people wanted to study this a bit more and try and understand it a bit more, they might have a whole lot of discoveries that impact the things that they're trying to do day to day and be really present in what they're trying to do and bring consciousness to it and be in the moment, basically, in terms of how they're impacting the world. So I want to thank you for your generosity with your time. I'll let you go. You can go outside and enjoy the snow in Germany. It's not snowing in Western Australia, I can tell you that. It's pretty warm. But thank you so much for your time.
Okay. Simon, thank you also once again, and we stay in touch, and maybe one day I find an answer to the last question.
And then let me know. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye bye, Simon.
Bye-bye.